Chapter 15. The wise ones of old had subtle wisdom and depth of understanding so profound that they could not be understood. And because they could not be understood, perforce must they be so described. Cautious, like crossing a wintry stream. Irresolute, like one fearing danger all around. Reserved, like one acting as guest. Self-effacing, like ice beginning to melt. Genuine, like a piece of undressed wood. Open-minded, like a valley, and mixing freely, like murky water. Who can find repose in a muddy world? By lying still, it becomes clear. Who can maintain his calm for long? By activity, it comes back to life. One who embraces this Tao guards against being overfull. Because he guards against being overfull, he is beyond wearing out and renewal. Chapter 16. Attain the utmost in passivity, hold firm to the basis of quietude. The myriad things take shape and rise through activity, but I watch them fall back to the repose, like vegetation that luxuriantly grows, but returns to the root from which it springs. To return to the root is repose. It is called going back to one's destiny. Going back to one's destiny is to find the eternal law. To know the eternal law is enlightenment, and not to know the eternal law is to court disaster. He who knows the eternal law is tolerant. Being tolerant, he is impartial. Being impartial, he is kingly. Being kingly, he is in accord with nature. Being in accord with nature, he is in accord with Tao. Being in accord with Tao, he is eternal, and his whole life is preserved from harm. Chapter 17. Of the best rulers, the people only know that they exist. The next best they love and praise, the next they fear, and the next they revile. When they do not command the people's faith, some will lose faith in them, and then they resort to oaths. But of the best, when their task is accomplished, their work done, the people all remark, "We have done it ourselves." Chapter 18. On the decline of the great Tao, the doctrine of humanity and justice arose. When knowledge and cleverness appeared, great hypocrisy followed in its wake. When the six relationships no longer lived at peace, there was praise of kind parents and filial sons. When a country fell into chaos and misrule, there was praise of loyal ministers. Chapter 19. Banish wisdom, discard knowledge, and the people shall profit 100-fold. Banish humanity, discard justice, and the people shall recover love of their kin. Banish cunning, discard utility, and the thieves and brigands shall disappear. As these three touch the externals and are inadequate, the people have need of what they can depend upon. Reveal thy simple self. Embrace thy original nature. Check thy selfishness. Curtail thy desires. Chapter 20. Banish learning and vexation's end. Between ah and oh, how much difference is there? Between good and evil, how much difference is there? That which people fear is indeed to be feared, but alas, distant yet is the dawn of awakening. The people of the world are merrymaking, as if partaking of the sacrificial feast, as if mounting the terrace in spring. I alone am mild, like one unemployed, like a newborn babe that cannot yet smile, unattached, like one without a home. The people of the world have enough and to spare, but I am like one left out. My heart must be that of a fool, being muddled, nebulous. The vulgar are knowing, luminous. I alone am dull, confused. The vulgar are clever, self-assured. I alone depressed, patient as the sea, adrift, seemingly aimless. The people of the world all have a purpose, I alone appear stubborn and uncouth. I alone differ from the other people, and value drawing sustenance from the mother. Chapter 21. The marks of great character follow alone from the Tao. The thing that is called Tao is elusive, evasive, elusive, yet latent in it are forms. Elusive, evasive, yet latent in it are objects. Dark and dim, yet latent in it is the life force. The life force being very true, latent in it are evidences. From the days of old till now, its names, manifested forms, have never ceased, by which we may view the Father of all things. How do I know the shape of the Father of all things? Through these manifested forms. Chapter 22. To yield is to be preserved whole. To be bent is to become straight. To be hollow is to be filled. To be tattered is to be renewed. To be in want is to possess. To have plenty is to be confused. Therefore the sage embraces the One and becomes the model of the world. He does not reveal himself and is therefore luminous. He does not justify himself and is therefore far famed. He does not boast of himself, and therefore people give him credit. He does not pride himself, and is therefore the chief among people. Is it not indeed true, as the ancients say, to yield is to be preserved whole? Thus he is preserved, and the world does him homage. Chapter 23. Nature says few words, hence it is that a squall lasts not a whole morning. A rainstorm continues not a whole day. Where do they come from? From nature. Even nature does not last long in its utterances. How much less should human beings? Therefore it is that he who follows the Tao is identified with the Tao. He who follows character, day, is identified with character. He who abandons Tao is identified with abandonment of Tao. He who is identified with Tao, Tao is also glad to welcome him. He who is identified with character, character is also glad to welcome him. He who is identified with abandonment, abandonment is also glad to welcome him. He who has not enough faith will not be able to command faith from others. Chapter 24. He who stands on tiptoe does not stand firm. He who strains his strides does not walk well. He who reveals himself is not luminous. He who justifies himself is not far famed. He who boasts of himself is not given credit. He who prides himself is not chief among people. These in the eyes of Tao are called the dregs and tumors of virtue, which are things of disgust. Therefore the person of Tao spurns them. Chapter 25. Before the heaven and earth existed, there was something nebulous, silent, isolated, standing alone, changing not, eternally revolving without fail, worthy to be the mother of all things. I do not know its name and address it as Tao. If forced to give it a name, I shall call it great. Being great implies reaching out in space. Reaching out in space implies far-reaching. Far-reaching implies reversion to the original point. Therefore, Tao is great, the heaven is great, the earth is great, the king is also great. These are the great four in the universe, and the king is one of them. People model themselves after the earth models itself after heaven, the heaven models itself after Tao, Tao models itself after nature.